Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this ServiceNow live event for hardware asset management. Today, we're going to be talking about how to use purchase orders to capture complete asset data in your procurement and receiving process. And we have a great group of folks to talk about this today. First, I want to direct everybody to this QR code here that you can scan and take a look at upcoming webinars and meetups. We are continuing to evolve our community, create more space for our asset managers to connect and meet, including monthly office hours that have kicked off last month. And so take a look at this link and sign up and stay up to date on all of the initiatives to help you speed your deployment adoption and capture value with hardware asset management. Some other quick upfront notes is that today everything we speak about today is privileged and confidential and intended for your educational purposes. And if we do mention any forward-looking statements, things coming down the pipeline or anything in our roadmap, please note that our safe harbor notice applies. All right, so with this live event, we're so excited to deliver on our commitment to help our customers, you, just adopt the product faster. We want to get you crawling to walking to running with hardware asset management as quickly as possible. And we understand that takes into account both your operational processes and technical know-how of the product. And so these events ideally are here for you to give you the tools that you need to succeed and get access to our ITAM BU key individuals who are building the product or using it every day to help our customers get to value. My name is Michael Scognamilio. I'm an outbound product manager for hardware asset management. I've been with ServiceNow for over 2 years, and my goal is to work very closely with customers, be the voice of the customer, and bring that back into our product. And I am thrilled and lucky to be joined by this great group of gentlemen. We have Michael Smith, the senior principal inbound product manager, responsible for working on and developing the hardware asset management product. And I'm also joined by Sean Walker and Ben Mills, two great principal product success architects responsible for a number of fantastic content on our community page that you should check out. Videos, how-tos, tremendous amount of material there, and they'll be here to help demo and answer questions. So gentlemen, thank you very much for joining, and excited to be on this call with you today. All right, so today we're going to try and have a conversation around a pretty big topic here, which is the importance of getting your assets in the door and how to do that in a way that can help you out down the line. That'll include, what really makes a complete asset record. And then we're going to drive a little bit more into the details on how to create a purchase order and how to receive assets on a purchase order. What we're going to talk about today is really about the beginning of the life cycle and how critically important that is for hardware asset management and that data to flow through the rest of your lifecycle journey. We have the chat open, which is a great place to just share, insights or one-offs, but or communicate with each other or us. But if you do have a specific question, we have time for questions at the end. So please keep all your questions for Q&A in the Q&A section of Zoom, and that'll help us keep track of it and make sure we answer them in a timely manner. All right. So without further ado, let's talk about the importance of getting assets in. So many people are familiar with this slide. Hardware asset management is powered by the Now platform. And upon the Now platform, we are creating processes throughout your full asset lifecycle, whether you are requesting an asset to fulfillment, monitoring it, and retiring it. Hardware asset management works on its own and better together with other ServiceNow products to make this asset lifecycle fully auditable, streamlined, efficient, and clear for your asset managers. Now, this covers the entire asset lifecycle, but from cradle to grave. But what I believe we're really going to drill into today is getting your assets into your organization, getting your assets into the hands of end users. And everyone on this call knows how critical that early, first step is for you and your asset estate. We're going to talk about those key moments in the asset entry lifecycle. So where the request for a hardware asset is initiated by an employee and approved by an asset manager, or when you're sourcing that asset and you need to review to determine where a hardware asset is available to fulfill that service request or that change request. Where can you find that asset in your asset estate, or is it something that you need to purchase? And when purchase record requests for assets are reviewed and approved, and those purchase orders are issued to suppliers, are shipping notifications provided to enable the initial creation of an asset record. How are you creating the asset record in your asset inventory and making sure that you're monitoring that and auditing that throughout the life cycle? Michael, Sean, anything to add to this before we keep going?
No, these are great topics. And this is one of the areas that most of our customers are struggling with when they begin their HAM implementation journey. Now, just to kind of set the stage a little bit, most of what we're going to be talking about today is going to be focused on the hardware asset management product, not the core asset management that most of our customers start with. So a lot of our advanced features that allow for the proper intake of assets as they come in will be applying to the hardware asset management product. But what I will say is there's really 2 points of that life cycle that we're looking at here where it is critical from an asset perspective to get it right at these 2 points. That's when assets come in the door and then when assets go out the door. As long as you do those 2 things right, and with HAM, you're given the tools to help expedite that, it's going to be much easier for your organization to account for your assets. And I think the focus for today is bringing those assets in the door. We hear a lot of customers don't worry about the asset until they are discovered or until they appear on the network or until they become a CI. But unfortunately, at that stage of the life cycle, you've already missed a major portion of that asset's life. You missed the receiving of it. You don't have any of the PO data. You can't discover how much you paid for a laptop. You can't discover who you bought it from, right? So that's why it's critical to get these details right when the assets are created before they get discovered, because you still have to manage those assets until they come online and while they're in inventory.
Hey, Mike,
Absolutely.
I saw a question come through. I don't know if you guys wanted to tackle it here, but the question was around a customer doesn't believe that they have procurement, and they kind of want to know, hey, how do I get procurement to go through this? I mean, do you guys want to touch
Yeah.
on that a little bit?
Thank you, Ben. I know we have a specific section on that later that we're gonna talk about how to make sure you're utilizing the procurement functionality. And so so that's a great question, and I'm looking ahead there. Thank you. All right, so let's get started. All right, so asset record completeness. Asset managers. I've spoken to hundreds of asset managers, and whether you are don't just at the beginning of your hardware asset management journey, or whether you're involved in frequent mergers and acquisitions, there's plenty of reasons why, but there are many times where asset managers are faced with assets coming through the door, and and there's a big question mark on some of the key fields related to these assets. You know, our asset managers really need to be armed with the information of where did this asset come from? Where did I receive this asset? How much did it cost? Um, what is the warranty date of this asset? Michael, can you help explain why this data is so fundamental at the upfront for our asset managers?
Absolutely. One of the things that we tend to forget because we get tunnel vision in our asset world is how critical asset record completeness and data is for the rest of the organization. Whether it's the incident team and the service desk that's managing these assets, when a caller calls in and says, I have a broken laptop, if I don't know when that laptop was received and purchased, I can't even begin to guess when the warranty started. So I'm not going to be able to support the asset if I don't know everything that I need to know about the asset. Same thing goes with change management, break fix. Any of these other processes require these dates. And then you have, your risk and security team. They want to ensure that the devices that are out there are covered under warranty, or they're in their useful life, and that they don't have old devices that could be a risk to the organization. So without capturing these key fields from the onset, it can be a challenge. Now, one thing we do hear a lot is a lot of our customers are starting, but they already have 50,000 assets in their database, and they don't have any of this information. One advantage, if you are purchasing through a VAR or value-added reseller, a lot of times you can reach out to them and get your purchase history and import that data against the serial numbers, so you can at least start with a clean source of data for the assets that you do have. So You know, if you haven't done this through today, but you're going to start best practices tomorrow, that's great. But there are ways you can pull that data in from the different vendors that you purchase your equipment through.
Thank you, Michael. Now, and we are releasing roadmap sessions to our customers on twice a year release, and every release, we're introducing these fantastic new features for our customers. That really do rely on ensuring that this data is captured at the upfront. One in particular I wanted to call out was asset total cost of ownership. Our customers time and time again have stressed how absolutely vital it is to understand the total cost of ownership, not just how much did an asset cost originally, but what are all of the additional costs that might not even be in the purview of an asset manager, change or incident requests, maintenance requests, things like that, where an asset manager might not even be realized, how much drag an asset is having in terms of cost on the organization. And so this feature, shared across hardware asset management and enterprise asset management, allows our customers to track all costs incurred against an asset through the entire life cycle. Of course, making sure that those costs from when the asset gets in the door are fundamental to make sure that you have accurate total cost of ownership data and you can really action on this information for your organization. Anything to add on that, Mike?
Absolutely. I mean, if you don't have the baseline of what you purchased for it, it's going to be really hard to give you that picture of your total cost of ownership. So that's really critical to bring that in there. Something else to keep in mind too that I will add is your organization today is procuring things. They have a system of record that they're using to procure. We do have customers that use ServiceNow as their main procurement tool, but for the most part, I would say the majority of customers are using a tool like Ariba or Coupa or another procurement system. One of the things that we see probably our most common integration is integrations to those tools. But because every organization has unique purchasing requirements or policies, you'll find that you'll have to build out transforms. But it's very common to be able to bring in that PO data from another system. And if you can do that, then this problem takes care of itself. Because so as POs get generated, they'll sync with the ServiceNow PO record, and you'll have all this data automatically.
That's a good segue into, and this is, something that Ben brought up earlier from the audience. We're now going to talk about creating a purchase order, and one of the steps of that is activating the ServiceNow procurement capability. So, when you download hardware asset management, you want to make sure that you activate the procurement capability, and the screen shows you where you can do that or where you can make sure that you've done that. Michael, can you help explain, what some of the advantages are to, or why the procurement plugin is so useful for this conversation?
Absolutely. So the PO is going to contain all the purchasing details, who we purchased the asset from, the vendor. It's also going to allow you to create vendor catalog items. So when you're going and executing your sourcing tasks, you can see all the different vendors you may buy a specific model from and utilize those vendor catalog items to see the vendor ranked here, what the vendor charges, and so on and so forth. So you can provide some options to the procurement team to say, hey, we want to buy this model from this vendor. And you can kind of have some control over that decision as well. And you also get a lot of really great reporting out of the procurement module. You'll be able to see your total spend by vendors. You'll be able to track your purchase orders that are awaiting delivery. There's all kinds of great widgets in the procurement workspace that comes in the HAM workspace here. But everyone that has core asset is entitled to the procurement plugin. You just need to enable it in your instance. If it's not enabled today, if you don't see PO, it's either not enabled, or you may have the role. Somebody may have restricted the role because they don't want people using it. So that's something that you would need to look into. The other reason why you want to create POs is now you'll be able to receive assets. You'll be able to receive assets as they come in against the PO record. So now within this PO record, you're going to have all the associated assets that are created against it. You're going to have all the receiving slips to track to ensure that what you ordered was properly received. That way your finance team can then invoice and pay for what was received. So we're helping the finance team, and most procurement teams absolutely love it when the asset team takes an interest in procurement because it makes their job easier. so they don't have to reconcile their books as much because a lot of it's being done in the back end. And then the other great thing about having the purchase orders is, you've got the ability with hardware asset management to ingest ASNs. So once a PO has been cut and you're waiting for 100 laptops to come in from a vendor, that vendor can send you an Excel that you can import in and create those records with tags and serial numbers. So now you're just validating and scanning them at the loading bay instead of either having to create assets manually or import a spreadsheet to create those assets. So a lot of the automation behind this is central to the purchase order.
That's awesome. Sean, anything you wanted to add on that?
Yeah, just I saw a question come in that kind of relates to this. It was just, do vendors need to be set up prior to bringing the assets into HAM? And yeah, yes, definitely. If you want to be, associating those purchases and assets with that vendor, you're going to want to make sure that record exists when you're bringing it in.
Awesome. Now, I know we spoke about this a little earlier too. Michael, you mentioned, and we talked about this before the call, that some individuals have other ways of ingesting procurement information besides the activating and leveraging this capability. But we talked about how even if you do, you should still find ways to leverage this capability. Can you expand on that a little bit? That even if folks have other procurement tools, why you should still use this tool?
Yeah, absolutely. If from a procurement team's purchasing everything, right? They're purchasing real estate, they're building out headcount and salaries, furniture, facility equipment, but what we care about is the IT assets. So by having that connection, that integration between ServiceNow and whatever, like I said, Coupa, Reba, whatever tool you're using to actually execute the procurement parts, or if you're using source to pay within ServiceNow, having this PO record in the ITAM space is giving you that really like a clone of what they're doing. So procurement has their own PO. We have our own PO, but all the fields are synchronized. So we know the models that are coming in, we know the quantities, we know the vendor, we know the cost, and we know all the information that we need to know to go on forward. So that's why it's critical to have our version of the PO record, even though the primary PO is being managed by a different team. As long as there's that integration, we have all the details that we need to really fill out what I call the birth certificate of an asset, right? When that asset comes in, all those financial details are there. And your finance team will love this because when they need to audit their fixed asset records, they can show, okay, here's an asset ledger line, here's the POs that went with that, and I can go into ServiceNow and actually see those assets, see where they're at, see if they're being used, see if they've been retired. And so for many different, like SOX compliance, for example, having this audit trail of basically the physical information, but as well as the financial information is such a huge win.
Fantastic. Let's move on to source request. So, in preparing for this call, we spoke a lot about the power of source request, and especially in its ability to help asset managers create a purchase record for a requested asset. Michael or Sean, can you maybe click in a little bit to why this is such a powerful feature for our asset managers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Michael.
I was just going to say, so this, a lot of organizations are reactionary when somebody asks for something, and their first instinct is, I need to go buy it. But if we're being, proper corporate stewards of our budgets, we want to use what's in stock first, or if I can transfer it in locally first. So when that request comes in and I need to fulfill it, if I don't have it in my local stock room, and if I don't have one to transfer, then I have the ability to click the purchase button and create a PO. Now with this, like, you can see here, there's multiple vendors. I have control over which vendor. I may have tried to purchase this last week and CDW has a 3-week delay on this, but Dell can get it to me in 2 days. So having this flexibility before procurement actually goes out and does what they do and actually do the purchasing is really beneficial for the asset team.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I would say, not only beneficial to the asset team, but if you're reusing what you already have today, your end users are going to be, their requests are going to be fulfilled faster, right? So your user satisfaction is going to be much higher the faster you can fulfill their requests with what they need. So we often see a lot of organizations, keeping stock of certain their specific models in play are in their stock rooms so that they can fulfill those requests quicker. And again, leveraging the other features like stock rules to keep those inventory levels, kind of optimized, just helps keep everybody happier. The happier end users are using the service catalog and the requests, the more they're going to use it. And that kind of will help control the requests and the influx of requests and give you that full visibility.
And Sean, to add to that, something that's critical from a doing things right perspective from this sourcing task is when the purchase action is initiated in ServiceNow, and we say we need to buy this Latitude 5000 series with that specific part number at the end. What that does is, one, you're looking at normalized data right there. So when I created this asset, I published it to the catalog, I published clean normalized model and part numbers. Now there's no confusion when the procurement team gets this request. If a procurement team gets a request for a Latitude 5000 without this kind of intervention, they could purchase one of probably 1,200 different part numbers. It could be a Spanish keyboard versus a US keyboard. It could have a different power supply. It could have different specifications. So by having this, we're ensuring that what was requested is what is being purchased. In some cases, when you're letting procurement do this, and I've had to deal with this in the past when I was a ServiceNow customer, our procurement team would just copy and paste the quote. And it would be 264 characters. It would be this huge paragraph of every detail that was in the quote. And when that gets in, when we try to import that, it creates a lot of work for the asset team to sift through that information. So this is going to streamline that process. It's going to prevent the need to reconcile. It's going to give your ERP a clean ledger because you're going to have the clean model numbers listed in the procurement records.
Thank you both. Super helpful here on source request. I know we have a lot of answers or questions in the Q&A. We're going to make sure we get to them at the end. But Michael and Sean, if any of them pop up and seem relevant to touch on, feel free to kind of voice that reading the question first. The last topic we're going to talk about before we move into a demo here is receiving assets on a PO. Okay, right. So when your assets are delivered to a stockroom, of course, they can be received and added to the system. Through this process, you are able to capture a receive date. So I wanted to just kind of take a moment, Michael, can you help explain, the importance of the receive date and why our customers should be focused on capturing that appropriately?
Absolutely. And this is all about the chain of custody, right? As an organization, you need to know when that asset came in the organization, right? Just as much as you need to know when it leaves the organization. And there's lots of things that the receive date allows you to do down the road. One, it allows you to track useful life. How long have we had this asset? It also allows you to, track a warranty and when the warranty begins. If you have a maintenance plan and you add an asset to the maintenance plan and they try to charge you 2 months prior to when you received it, well, I shouldn't be paying for maintenance for something that you haven't sent me yet. So having this date is the line in the sand where the chain of custody for your organization started with this asset, which is very critical.
Absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. I see some questions, so we'll hopefully capture some of those during the upcoming demo here, and then we'll also have a Q&A section at the end. Sean, I'm going to hand it over to you to walk the group through a source request and receive demo.
Sounds good. And feel free to interrupt me, guys, if there are any of the questions relate to a specific section that I'm going to show here today. So just give me a moment and I will share my screen. All right, so you should be able to see my screen.
Yes.
All right, so what I'm going to walk through today is I'm going to just walk through the source request and then also the creation of a purchase order and the receive of a purchase order. And depending on time, I might try and receive the mobile and the UI. So I'm in my Xanadu instance right now, and I'm on the hardware asset workspace. So I'm going to go and I'm not going to do the request piece today. That's something separate that can be covered in another topic, but we have these requests that came in. So if I come down into my asset operations, I can see all the different requests that have come in, and I want to fulfill these requests. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through two of these and just show you the different operations. Actually, I wanted to go to this one first and show you. So this one came in from Jane Edmonton, and she is requesting a latitude 5,000, and it's already been approved by her manager. So now it's at the point where I can fulfill this request. So I'm using the standard hardware request flow for this particular catalog item. And so in that, I have the source request. And this is what Michael was referring to earlier, gives the asset managers the ability to actually source from local inventory.
And Sean, I would
Yeah.
like to point out with this task that you're seeing here is built into many of the ham workflows where we need to find an asset for the request, whether it's refresh, whether it's a standard hardware asset order or a bulk inventory order. This is that sourcing task that's inserted in many of our ham out of the box flows.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so this is great to be for asset managers to be able to see, and again, as I said, fulfill these requests sooner. So since this catalog item was associated with this very specific model, this source request is going to look at all the different inventory I have within my overall estate and show me what I might have. So in this case, I can see I need one, and I actually have 5 in my local stock room that I can fulfill this request with. I don't have any others to transfer, or for some reason, if there's something going on that I know of, I could still trigger a purchase order. But in this case, I'm going to say, hey, I have a local one here. I'm going to go ahead and consume this for this request and fulfill this request with it. Now, if you did have inventory in multiple stock rooms, it could show you that as well. I have in this instance set up something called service locations. And that's something I do recommend. We have some good videos on service locations, and they really help out with this local stock concept. So definitely check out those videos. So anyway, you can fulfill it from the Canada West stock room, and I'm going to consume one of these, and it's reserving it for that requested user. And I hit submit, and now the workflow is going to go ahead and move through into the next part or the next task of the workflow. And you can see here that I've got the next task. So I'm not going to go through all those tasks today on this request. I just wanted to specifically go through the different sourcing options. So now I'm in request number 62 for Jane. And this particular request is for an Inspiron 7000 notebook. So we're going to go ahead, and it's already been approved. So we're going to go ahead and source this one again. And when we source this one, we see that there is no stock, right? So there's no local stock, there's no transferable stock. I, as an asset manager, don't have a choice. This has been approved. There's justification, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and trigger that vendor purchase. And here's where we have the option. Oh, I don't have multiple catalog items. If you did purchase from multiple vendors, you could have different catalog or vendor catalog items here. In this case, to only purchase directly from Dell. And we're going to specify the stock room where we're going to have this particular laptop delivered. And we're going to hit submit. And this is going to go ahead and create that purchase order for us. And we can see here, it's gone ahead and it's created that purchase order. And again, this is going to depend, right, as we've been talking about. Maybe you have an integration with your procurement system. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're doing swivel chair. If you're just getting started out, the swivel chair is a good way to do it before you actually get the full-blown integration in, because then you can at least get those POs generated within ServiceNow and do the receiving piece, even if you have to go to another system to actually trigger that order. So for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go into that purchase order record, and I'm going to go ahead and order this device. and now it is ordered and it is waiting to be received. I can see here there is one line here. I do believe I saw a question about how do you receive with multiple different models. You can do that, absolutely. And I can sort of talk you through that, but I don't have any demos with multiple lines on it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to switch over to my mobile device. So if you bear with me one moment while I try and share out my screen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to receive this particular asset on on my mobile. All right, so we should be able to see my broadcast now. And I should be able to switch now into my ServiceNow agent app. I can get rid of my face. I don't need to see that. All right, so I'm in the agent app right now, and I want to go ahead and receive this particular asset on the mobile. So I'm going to go ahead and hit purchase orders within the next 30 days. And we can see there's only one purchase order 15, that was created that I need to receive. So this is where we can go into our related lists and take a look at our individual PO line items. So if I had multiple different models, they would appear on this purchase order, they would appear in multiple lines on your purchase order. So you'd be able to receive against those multiple models. Now, since my purchase order only had the one, I'm going to go ahead and click on that Inspiron 7000. And what I can do here is I can click on the three little dots up in the top corner, and I have the receive option. And what that's going to do is it's going to trigger my camera, and it allows me to scan the asset tag, and it allows me to scan the serial number. And again, if I was receiving multiples, if there was multiples on this, I could continue scanning and continue scanning and continue scanning as I'm receiving all the different boxes of assets. So then once you completed that, you can actually go to the review, make sure it's what you wanted. Again, if you had multiple line items and multiple scans, you can go through and review them and delete them. Sometimes your camera's too fast, it double scans. And if that happens, and you can delete that, and then you can submit it once you're done. Oh, well, that's great. I don't know why it failed to receive. Oh, I know why it failed to receive, because I received this one yesterday. That's my bad. That's my bad. I was testing my demo yesterday, and I forgot to get rid of my demo asset, so I can't receive two of the same assets. So it's actually a good error, because what it is that it's not allowing me to receive this asset because I already have an asset in the system with that particular serial number. So if you give me one moment, let me see if I can clear that out. Nothing like live demos to mess with things. So what I'm doing right now is I'm in my instance. Yes, there is that asset.
I mean, you had me fooled. You were showing a great feature to prevent creating duplicate assets. You could have spun it a different way. But
I could have spun it a different way. No, it was a screw up. I forgot to delete the other asset. Okay, so now I think my asset's been deleted. There we go. Let's see if it'll allow me to submit. Now, oh, look at that. It works perfectly when I deleted that asset. Okay, so now I'm going to just stop sharing on this screen. And I'm going to come back to my other screen. All right, and so as you can see, I navigated to my stock room, and I can see that this asset was still there. So I deleted this asset, and now I can see that it has been received in this particular stock room. And then I can go back to that, where am I? Purchase order. And it should update to received. As you see here, it's now this purchase order says received. That one line item says received. The asset that was created is there. The cost came through. right? So that's important. That cost came through, the model, everything came through when it created that asset. And so everything's here, and it's done my state for me, and it's finished, then put it into the right stockroom, etc. And that pretty much concludes the demo I had set up for you. Is any questions that came up while I was demoing that maybe I need to go through?
Awesome demo. Taking a look here.
Yeah, I would say, Sean, there are some questions around like discrepancies, like what happens if you're receiving a model and it's a different part number or a different quantity that what was received. How do you normally handle those situations?
I'm trying to think. So you received, so you're saying, well, basically what you were shipped is not what was on the purchase order. And how do you receive that?
Say the vendor substituted a model, it didn't update their record. So
Right.
you know, maybe you
Yeah,
ordered.
when you receive on the mobile, what it's going to do is it's going to automatically associate that serial number with that model. It's not going to know that the model that was ordered. It's not going to know the difference in terms of that you were shipped a different model. So that's a good one. You'd probably have to go and change the purchase order. You wouldn't want to necessarily receive that asset via the mobile because that's going to end up creating that asset with the wrong model, and it's really hard to change the model afterwards. So you probably have to add another line to the PO, I would say, and receive against that line with the correct model before you actually go ahead and receive it. And so that's a case where you might not want to use the mobile. You might actually want to use the UI and receive via the UI instead. Does that kind of answer it?